Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today we're gonna continue to talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Specifically gonna talk about the animated cartoon and all the toys that we love and share. Hey guys, last episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles we talked about the origins of the comics and we talked about how it all started in Mirage Studios where Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman created the Turtles. We met Mark Freeman who had a burning passion for selling the merchandise of the Turtles and got the rights from Peter and Kevin to do it. The only rule was that Kevin and Peter would have last say. Now Mark drove around, as you remember, trying to sell his idea to different kinds of companies, and it was hard for him to do in the beginning. But he finally made a deal with Playmates Toys. Now at the time, the competition of the toy line was very high, and they were up against toys like Barbie, G.I. Joe, He-Man, WWF, action figures, and Transformers and My Little Pony. And if you remember, one of the issues with turning the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles into a toy line was that the known comic at the time was a lot darker than it is today. In fact, it was a bloody revenge story. They needed to soften the story up a bit. They called in John Handy and tried to get him to soften up the story to make it more kid-friendly. They after that started designing characters, both enemies and the Turtles. But they needed a way to market the toy and felt the old comic books were more aimed at an older generation and feared they would not be interested in the toys. So they wanted a kid-friendly show, like the big boys, like the He-Man, the Transformers, the G.I. Joe, and the rest. And this is one of the things beside the toys that I remember the best. So what they did then was to contact the animation studios and designed a cartoon specifically for marketing purposes. And David Wise got the job to make 5 miniseries episodes of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now in the beginning there were some problems, and apart from all the blood and the killing and the revenge story, at that time you couldn't tell the Turtles apart because they all had the same red bandana. So then they gave them all each different colored bandanas in specific personalities. We have Leonardo, the leader and the straight arrow, with the blue bandana and dual ninja swords. And then we have Donatello, the tech boy, with the purple bandana and the quarterstaff. And then we have Michelangelo, the orange-wearing, pizza-loving embodiment of a teenager who uses dual nunchucks, wearing the orange bandana. Then we have Raphael, the sarcastic smartass, tough guy with the twin psi weapon, wearing the red bandana. He was my favorite. Tell me in the comments, guys, who was your favorite Turtles and tell me why. And now we had the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as we know and cherish today. So they started molding the 3D action figures. There actually was a funny problem with the first cast of the miniatures. Well, like the comic books and the cartoons, they had a tail, but when the action figure came out, the tail looked more like, well, like its genitalia. So after that, all the figures lost their tails. After the sculpted figures were done and the first cartoons, they went to Kmart, Toys R Us, Sears, Target to pitch the idea. They told them these are action figures like you've never seen them before. The response? I don't see it. It flopped. And then at this point they actually did not know what to do now, and they even considered to cut their losses. Then they asked Mark Taylor to come and help. Now we know Mark Taylor. We've talked about him before in the episode where we talked about He-Man. He was the guy that created Skeletor. You know, the guy who had a fear as a child when he was in an amusement park somewhere in America, and he went to this haunted house where they saw this mannequin of a corpse, and he as a kid was positive that this thing was real. It was way too live looking, and it turned out it was real. You know what, it's a long story. If you want to see that episode, go check out the He-Man episode and come back to this episode afterwards, guys. It's crazy. Anyway, Mark Taylor came and pimped up the designs of the action figures and actually got the go-ahead to design a van for them. And the action figures in the van look like we know and love today. Anyway, as Mark Taylor was working on the action figures, the animation studios hired Chuck Larry to help finish the cartoon and do the intro song. And on December 1987, the cartoon started airing. And this is actually one of the parts that I remember best from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Heroes in a half shell. Turtle power. and soon after Toys R Us gave them a chance and made them a deal for 6,000 units. So in June in 1988, 10 figures were made, 5 vehicles, and they were all shipped out to Toys R Us. And soon after that, there was a reorder of 50,000 units. Nice. And they were selling like crazy. It was a phenomenon. The shelves were empty, it became an overnight sensation. And here came the big money in for Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, the creators of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Mark Freeman did a good job, the toys were a big success, the cartoon was a big success. But Mark wanted more. He wanted to take things even further and take it to the big screen. Well, Kevin and Peter and the guys at Playmates did not like that idea too much, fearing it would become a failure like so many other comic book adaptations. And we are going to dive into that at another time, guys, so be sure to subscribe and click that bell if you want to be notified when the next episode of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comes up. But we're going to dive into that at another episode of the Nerd Hangout. But there's no question that the comic book was a success and the toys and the cartoon was an even bigger success, and it sold like crazy, so Mark really did a good job. But here's where we're going to stop today's episode, guys. Hope you liked it. Give us a like and see you at another time, nerds. Now this really is a nostalgic episode for me to do with the cartoons and with the toys, because they were my favorite part of the Turtles. So I was young in the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. There will be a future episode and we are going to talk about the live action movie that came out in 1990, but that's going to be in another episode. And if you want to catch that episode, guys, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. And we're going to dive in specifically the animations and all the toys related to Cartoon Network. What? Cartoon Network? Hey, if you want to see that episode where we talk about the creator of Skeletor who found this corpse, who we believed was real and actually is real, then check this episode out, guys. If you want to see the first episodes of the Turtles where we talk about the origins of the comics, check this episode. And you can subscribe down here.